Racers. This is a tutorial for sewing your first pair of pointe shoes. There's lots of different ways to sew your pointe shoes. This is the way that I prefer. I'm going to show two methods for the elastics. You can do crisscross or you can do a single loop. So either way, you're going to need a needle and thread. You can purchase stitch kits at your local dance store or online, or you can use simple dental floss. I like to use wax non-scented dental floss and a larger sewing needle. You don't want it too big, otherwise it's hard to push through the shoe. You don't want to use too much thread at one time, otherwise it will get knotted up. So I like to just do about an arm's length. Cut your thread or your floss. And then pull your thread to where the ends meet at the end. From here, I hold the thread together in one hand, pinching, and then I use my other hand to create a loop. So it looks something like this. Holding the loop, I take my other finger and I just twist around 2 to 3 times. Put my fingers through, find the ends, and pull tight. And this gives you a nice double or triple knot, which is going to secure the thread in your shoes. Okay. So now that our needle is threaded, we take our elastics. So if you have a piece of elastic like this, if you're doing crisscross, you're going to want to measure from the back of your ankle to the center of your arch across. So put your shoe on your foot. You're going to measure from the back of the heel, and you're going to pull it to across the top of your foot to where your arch is on the other side. You want it to be a little snug. You do not want it to be tight to where it will cut off your circulation. Once you've measured out how far that distance is, you want to cut 4 pieces of identical length elastic to do the crisscross. And we're placing the heel elastic right on the outside of our heel seam here. We don't want it directly in the back. We want it just slightly to the side of either side here. To find the placement, I'm going to flip my heel inside out. Starts here. You just flip it inside out here. I'm going to place my elastic on the outside of my seam, just slightly over. I'm going to place it about here. I leave a little bit of tail, and we're going to hold it here. We're going to take our needle, and we're going to put it from the inside. We're going to place it right underneath this casing. The casing is where our drawstring is on the inside of our shoe. If we sew through the casing, then we won't be able to tighten or loosen our elastic. So we want to go right underneath the casing on the edge of our elastic. And pull through. Now we can flip the heel back over. We have 1 stitch on the heel. And then the next stitch is going to go around our casing. So on the top part, we miss the whole shoe and we push through the elastic. And it makes a loop. And we're going to continue to do that in through the back and then up through the top until we get to the end of the elastic piece. If we get loose threads to where it looks like one piece is popping out and the other is not, it simply means that both sides of your thread did not get pulled evenly. Go ahead and just take your thread and gently tug on each one until It evens back up, and then keep sewing. So now you have your entire row sewn. We're gonna flip it back on the outside, and we're gonna sew the tails down. Take your needle in on the canvas or whatever your lining is on your. You do not want to go all the way through the satins. You're going to try to just catch the lining so you don't see the stitches on the outside, and you're going to push through your lining and the elastic, and you're going to just do that around the whole bottom piece of your elastics. Once you're finished sewing all the way around the bottom, you're going to do your last stitch like you were sewing regularly, but leave the thread out in a loop, so don't pull it all the way tight. And then you're going to wrap your needle, just the tip. You have the loop out, you're going to wrap 1, 2, 3, will give you that triple knot, and then lightly tug. And it's going to create that nice secure knot for you. Clip the end, and your back heel is done for that side. Now if you're choosing to do the crisscross, you'll take your second piece of elastic and sew the same on the other side. If you're just doing the single loop, then you do the same method where you're sewing the heel, but instead of using this end over here, you're going to loop it back around to here. And to get this length, put your shoe on and measure the same distance around your ankle from one heel to the other. Make sure it's not too tight that it's going to cut off your circulation, just tight enough to where it's going to hold your shoe on and feel secure. So go ahead and sew those two around to make the single loop. To measure where we're going to sew down the front cross and or your ribbons, you're going to put your shoe on and mark lightly with a pen on the inside, or use a pin to mark the spot where your arch hits the highest on the shoe. More times than not, it's going to be right behind the side seam of your shoe. The shoes are designed that way to where your arch should hit about here, but everybody's feet are different. Some of us have higher arches or forward or back, so it's best to just measure with the shoe on. That way you have the best fit. So for me, the height of my arch is right on that seam, so I'm going to pull my elastic over and just pin. For ribbons, there's generally two different types. You have the classic satin that are shiny or matte, but are one solid piece of ribbon. And then we have the stretch ribbons that have elastic in them. They're nice and stretchy. Either one works. Ask your point shoe fitter which one they think would be the best for you. There's a different method that you can use to sew the stretch ribbon to where you don't have to cut them. I don't recommend this for beginners. I think it's very important for your first pair of shoes that you learn how to tie your point shoes correctly. So we're going to do 2 ribbons on each shoe. You can still use the stretch ribbon for that. I'm taking a new pack of satin ribbon. I'm going to fold it in half. I'm going to cut directly in half, and then I'm taking each half and cutting it in half once more, or cutting the entire ribbon in quarters, right? We need to have 4 even lengths, 2 for each shoe. So I'm going to do a quick snip from that. To make sure that our ribbons don't fray, which means little pieces that stick out like that. If you let that happen, it'll slowly unravel your entire ribbon. It's very messy and not wanted. We're going to use a lighter, and we're just going to carefully run it over the top, and it's going to make a nice little plastic seal for us. ask your parent if they will do it for you. So regardless if you have a single loop on your shoe or if you're doing crisscross, you're going to sew your ribbons in the same spot. So if you're sewing with your single loop and you've measured where you're sewing your ribbons, you're going to take your ribbon, whichever side is the shinier or nicer looking side, you want that to be facing out. So we're going to take the right side up. We're going to fold the tail just a little bit over so we have a nice flat, clean line to sew on. And we're going to place it on the inside of our shoe wherever we marked it. So I marked mine right behind the outer seam. We would then want to take a pin and just pin that in place. Pinning it right below the casing there. Then we're going to take our needle, we're going to tie that knot again, so we're going to do the loop, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to push the tail through, secure that knot, clip the ends, and then we're going to do the same sewing process where we start from the back, we push through underneath the casing, and then we come back over the top. Loop that around. If we're sewing, if we're sewing our crisscross shoe, it's going to be the exact same thing. I'm going to use a stretch ribbon on this one just to use something different. I'm going to take my end, I'm going to place it exactly where we measured. The only difference is I'm taking my ribbon, folding the end over the same that I did before, and I'm going to place it on top of my elastic. It's on top, so when I put it on the shoe, it's going to be on the outside. So I'm going to place it where I want it. You don't have to use a pin to hold it in place, but sometimes that's easier while you're sewing, so you don't have to worry about it slipping around or moving on you. So I'm taking my straight pin, I'm pinning it where I want it to be, and now you can see they're both pinned on the same spot. We are going to take our needle and you're going to do the exact same sewing process, starting from the inside, pushing it out and looping through the top. Okay. So at this point we want to mark which shoe is our right and our left. Up until this point it doesn't matter, but we're going to trim the length of our ribbon, so we're going to need to know which one is which. So I'm just going to say this is my right foot. I'm going to use a Sharpie or a ballpoint pen, and you can write either on the inside or on the outside of your shoe, just on the leather. You're just going to write a tiny little L and a tiny little R. You'll never see it from stage or anything like that, so it's okay to put it on the outside. Or you could put it on the inside of the lining, just somewhere that it's not going to get rubbed off. And then you're going to pretend that my elastic's still on here. We're going to put the shoe on, and I'm starting with my inside ribbon. I'm taking the ribbon, crossing it over. I go around my ankle one time, and I go 2 times. I'm holding that one right there, and I'm wrapping the ribbon right above my ankle bone. The outside ribbon crosses over the top, and it gets to go around 1 time and a half to meet in the middle. So one more time, we have inside goes over the top of the foot, it meets inside the ankle 1 time, meets inside the ankle 2 times. Outside goes over the top it wraps around 1 full time and a half. We turn and we're going to tie our ribbons. We don't want to tie it super tight because once we point our foot, it's going to get much tighter. I like to leave about 2 fingers width in there, so I'm going to kind of stick my fingers underneath while I'm tying to make sure I don't tie it too tight, but I am going to tie it in a double knot. And at this point, we're going to take our scissors and we're going to cut so the ribbons are equal length at the knot. At this point, we're going to put our little tails together. We're going to fold them down nice and neat. I just fold over the ends and then I wrap them until they're down here. I find a little loose spot underneath my ribbons and I'm going to tuck them underneath. And now we have a nice neat ribbon.